Hi, I'm Philip Lempa from APEC Virtual Selling, where we help companies sell more SaaS by leveraging modern virtual selling strategies. In today's video, we're going to talk about closing large enterprise SaaS deals virtually. If you're enjoying these videos, please give us a bit of feedback or interaction, and certainly subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out on any of our future videos. So a bit of context for this video. A couple of times I have discussed with others who are saying, okay, it is definitely doable to sell some mid-market type deals if you're primarily using virtual to sell. That's definitely doable, but can it be done for large enterprise type SaaS deals? The answer is certainly yes. I've seen many sales professionals do it, and personally I've closed large enterprise SaaS deals where the annual subscription would be in the very high six figures and the total contract value in the seven-figure territory, and did that using 100% virtual selling. So when it comes to these large enterprise deals, and it's always very exciting when we land them as opportunities and we can start working on them. But if you are using virtual selling as your primary selling method, you have to think about, especially very initially, qualifying pretty hard. And again, I know that can be mentally a bit difficult when it's a large, awesome deal. But what I mean here is primarily you have to think about, and again, this varies depending on your organization. You have to think about your potential limitations. And the truly most important thing to consider here is, are there any compliance / logistical limitations that you need to consider? So these would be things like, for example, if you are selling virtually because your company and then all your staff, your salespeople are located in, let's say, in the US, but you're trying to sell into Malaysia. Is it going to become a problem at the stage of contract signing that you don't have a Malaysian entity, right? So this is something that is extremely important to consider at the start. Or let's say in the SaaS space, oftentimes where your data center is can become an issue, right? So if, again, use the same example, you're in the US trying to sell into Malaysia, and they require for the data center to be in the region, and that's likely to become a problem. So it's very important for these large enterprise deals to have a think about that and consider that at the very start, right? Because more often than not, with larger companies, there is more scrutiny on compliance, and these are more likely to come up as issues down the road in your sales cycle. And the last thing you want to do is throw a lot of resources into this potential huge opportunity just to have considerations like that become a big problem for getting them signed as customers. So of course, as you consider that, this potentially can always be mitigated. So let's say in the example of the entity, if it's a large enough customer, you can, even if you don't have any staff, get an entity in their country if, again, their business would more than pay for that cost. Or for instance, you can look into potentially utilizing a data center, even if you aren't already in that part of the world. So these are just two examples, but as you engage, depending on your niche, your space, your product, have a think as to what kind of issues like that can come up with the customer, and try to address them from the start so it doesn't become a huge issue down the road with some of these large potential customers. right? So assuming this is hopefully now out of the way, you are in the deal. Now what you really need to do is you need to realistically evaluate and have a think about why are you in this large enterprise deal, right? So there's always a chance that you're there just to tick the box against the competition, and there's some ways to ensure that this isn't the case, or you know about it at the qualification stage so you can qualify out. But that's a video within itself. So for the purposes of today, we'll assume that this isn't the case and you are actually truly in the deal and the prospect is actually considering you. So now, as I mentioned, it's very important to have a think about, evaluate realistically why you're there. What is that you can offer to this large enterprise prospect, and what's unique about you? You know, what can you do for them? How you can differentiate against the competition that might have a lot more resources on the ground than you do. So this will both help you form the right strategy for your sales cycle, as well as give you a bit more confidence. So I've seen reps work these kind of deals and doing it 100% virtually, not having that confidence because they are against some larger players perhaps that have a lot more resources in that particular country, right? So have a particular country or particular location, whatever. Have a think about that. This is very important. Of course, here you have to know, what's unique about you in the context of this customer, but also knowing as much as possible about your particular competitors on that deal will again strengthen your sales strategy and also give you that confidence. So know your strengths for this customer, what you can offer them, and know as much as you can about your competitors on this large enterprise deal. So the next thing to consider when you are selling virtually on these large enterprise type engagements is to prepare for what can potentially work against you in terms of handling the sales cycle virtually. And we'll get to it in a second, but just to stress, this is additional stuff, not the compliance stuff that we talked about at the very start. That is that can be a potential absolute deal breaker. This is more stuff that can potentially be mentioned or come against you as objections, etc. So these will depend really on your type of product and your buyer, but I'll give a couple of examples here just to illustrate what I mean, and so that you can start thinking about this for when you are on these large enterprise deals. So some examples here. One thing, for instance, that I've seen with these type of large customers, and this was either implied or I think once I had it actually very directly stated, is the concern about trust. Because we are doing things virtually, maybe we don't necessarily have a presence in their country, can they trust us, etc. So you have to think, okay, how can I mitigate potentially something like this? So there's many things you could do here. They can talk to potential references that you might have, ideally that are similar to them, similar industry, same location. That's something. Definitely you could potentially use a partner who's local to that prospect, etc. So a lot of things you can do there. Or another example that I experienced quite a number of times was the prospect being fine with your engagement on the sales side virtually, but really concerned about implementation. And in that particular situation, I myself had an option where for that prospect, the implementation team could either do it fully remotely, or they could actually book some trips to see them and do it with them in person, right? So just knowing there's an option for that and having that there if need be, was something that was quite important in terms of handling that with the prospect. So hopefully these give you a bit of an idea, but again, that will be more unique to your product, your implementation methodology, etc. So you need to be prepared for that in your unique context. So during this video, as I was mentioning some of these challenges and objections, etc., hopefully you picked up on one reoccurring theme, so to speak, which is potentially using channel partners to navigate around that. This is something that's very important to consider as you are qualifying in and forming your sales strategy on these large enterprise deals. I've had large enterprise engagements where I didn't have to work with a channel partner. I was able to do everything on the software vendor side. However, probably more often than not, it is very beneficial to be able to work with a local channel partner on these type of deals. Hope this video gave you some ideas and better equip you for when you will be handling that large enterprise deal and you will be using virtual selling to do so. As always, any feedback is welcome, and if selling virtually in Asia Pacific to mid-market or large enterprise customers is something you need help with, definitely don't hesitate to get in touch with us.